Tonight, gone. Chief Minister Natasha Fyles falls on her sword, quitting the top job over undisclosed shares.
I made a mistake. There is no excuse for that. I'm owning up to it. I accept the consequences of it. That's the right thing to do.
A legacy of highs and lows, looking back at Natasha Fyles' rise to become the Territory's 12th Chief Minister. Who will be next? Deputy Chief Minister Nicole Manison puts her hand up for the top job. Plucked to safety, evacuations underway as far north Queensland continues to battle a flood emergency. And making the grade, AFLW teams snap up the best new talent for 2024. Good evening, Eleni Roussos with ABC News. Amid mounting pressure over undisclosed shares in a mining company, the Northern Territory's Chief Minister has announced her shock resignation, quitting all portfolios, including health, from Thursday. In a tearful press conference, Ms Fyles announced while she's leaving the top job, she'll stay on as a local member to help fight for next year's NT election. Thomas Morgan reports.
Good afternoon.
Stepping up, a Territory Chief Minister falls on her sword.
I'm owning up to it. I accept the consequences of it. That's the right thing to do. So on Thursday, I will officially resign my commission as Chief Minister of the Northern Territory, as well as my other ministerial portfolios.
Natasha Fyles worked her way to the top of Territory politics, just the second female NT Chief Minister in history. But in the end, it took just $2,000 worth of shares to bring her crashing down. A minor stake in resources giant South 32, which owns the Gemco manganese mine on Groote Island, forcing the leader's hand.
I care too much about our government and what it's achieved to allow my personal mistake to impact on our progress.
The outgoing Chief Minister claims the perceived conflict of interest was accidental.
I can assure Territorians that no decision I've ever made has been influenced by that small shareholding.
But to some of her federal counterparts, the revelations made it clear her time was up. Solomon MP Luke Gosling said resigning was the only acceptable course of action. They must learn the lessons of previous NT governments and work together, not focusing on themselves. Senator Malarndirri McCarthy taking to social media, saying it was an appropriate step. Her opponents scathing of her legacy.
What we have is a rudderless ship with no leadership at that government level at the top.
It's not good enough for politicians to do the bidding of the gas and miners at the expense of their community.
For Natasha Fyles, some optimism out of her loss.
So last night, when I told my boys of my decision, a big smile crept across Henry's face. He thinks it's an early Christmas present, getting his mum back.
Natasha Fyles' resignation comes just 8 months out from the next election. The tough ask for her successor is convincing Territorians to give Labor another 4 years. The Territory's ICAC today confirmed the government's conflicts of interest are being looked into.
Ms Fyles' resignation has thrown open the door for a new Chief Minister to be appointed before the end of this week. Our reporter Thomas Morgan joins us now from Parliament House. Tom, who could be the next NT leader?
Eleni, so far just one person has thrown their hat into the ring to become the next Chief Minister of the Northern Territory. Nicole Manison has served as a loyal deputy to both Natasha Fyles and before that Michael Gunner, and she has previously run for the top job when Mr Gunner resigned in May last year. Now, in a statement today, she said that she was seeking the top job because the Northern Territory needs an experienced and proven leader, and she says that she wants to focus on job creation if she is the next Northern Territory Chief Minister. Now, Miss Manison is from the Labor right faction. From the Labor left faction, no one has yet formally put their hand up for the leadership yet. Joel Bowden is one person who is rumoured to have aspirations for the top job, but he's yet to publicly declare his intentions for this race. In the meantime, in the last hour, Attorney General Chancey Paik has taken to social media to declare that he is keeping his options open and consulting with colleagues about whether to take a tilt at the top job. Now, while all of this is going on, spare a thought for residents in the electorate of Nightcliff who've watched their local member go from Chief Minister of the Northern Territory just this morning to a humble backbencher by this afternoon. We took to the streets to ask them what they think about today's events.
It's the best thing that's happened to the Territory in ages. Long overdue.
Makes everything feel like it's falling to pieces. But you want things stable at Christmas time.
Well, I thought she's done a pretty good job, actually. I just wonder who's going to replace her. Because the rest of them don't seem to do much at all.
Now, Natasha Files is set to formally resign on Thursday when she goes across the road to Government House and has a chat with the administrator. Ahead of that, we want to take this opportunity to take a look at Natasha Files' political career from when she was first elected as the member for Nightcliff back in 2012, right through to today's dramatic events.
Natasha Files started her political career as a self-effacing young mum. The former PE teacher who joined the Labour Party as a teenager was elected to NT Parliament in one of Darwin's most left-leaning seats, Nightcliff, in 2012. As opposition health spokeswoman against the former Country Liberal Party government, she became known as a capable NT Labour Party frontbencher. When Labour took power in a 2016 landslide, she took on the difficult portfolio of alcohol policy. Moves like reinstating the banned drinker register to stop problem drinkers buying alcohol were well received.
We have seen the Northern Territory's cases rise.
When COVID hit Australia in 2020, she stepped up as Health Minister, responding quickly to Indigenous community worries by closing borders and limiting deaths in the Territory. She also opened Australia's National Pandemic Quarantine Centre in Howard Springs. Although Labour had another confident election win in 2020, the shine with voters was fading. Chief Minister Michael Gunner resigned in July last year, leaving a void for Natasha Files to fill.
What do we say to fracking?
In the year and a half since she took power, a number of unpopular decisions have flipped community sentiment against Ms Files. Her decision to greenlight gas fracking in the Beetaloo Basin was controversial, both in the electorate and within her own left faction of Labour. Her government also came under sustained national criticism for allowing remote community liquor bans to lapse, prompting a surge in alcohol-related crime and violence. Community anger reached fever pitch over a prolonged spike in crime, not helped by forcing the NT Police Commissioner Jamie Chalker to resign in April. In September this year, Ms Files was allegedly assaulted by a constituent, who then received flowers outside court. But it's been her support for gas and mining on the national stage, while being accused of conflicts of interest she denies, that started her undoing. Last month, she divested 169 shares in Woodside over concerns it presented a conflict with the multi-billion-dollar new industrial precinct she's pushing for on Darwin Harbour. Earlier this month, it emerged her political advisor, Gerard Richardson, co-owns the lobbying firm for Beetaloo gas company Tamboran. Rejecting calls for health investigations into mining dust coating Groot Island, while holding 754 undisclosed shares with the mine's owner South 32, gave her the final push. With the health system in crisis and crime rates continuing to climb, Natasha Files' legacy as leader and health minister clearly contains highlights and some dark patches. Jane Barton, ABC News.
As the rain threat eases in far north Queensland, some communities remain cut off by floodwaters, with essentials running low. There's been dramatic rescues as people were plucked from trees and the roof of a pub by locals. And late today, the Defence Force evacuated an entire town.
As the floodwater recedes, stories of survival and bravery are emerging. In Rossville, north of Cairns,
James, are you all right?
Rumours of people trapped in trees and on the roof of a pub reached Gavin Deere.
Yeah, we gotcha. We gotcha.
This man found exhausted and shivering, but alive.
Okay, we got you, mate. Can you get down?
Yeah, it's all right, all cramped up.
Yeah.
Just when we were starting the motor, we could hear help, help. And we got out and we rescued the first fella sitting right up in a tree. This is an ocean of water, like unbelievable stuff.
This tiny two-seater mustering chopper did what the Defence Force apparently couldn't, plucking people from the roof of a pub.
We're used to cyclones, floods every year, but this flood, mate, it was something to behold.
This is the sodden group saved from the lion's den, hotel that is.
These are the stories of which every Australian can be proud of, the very essence of the Australian character.
Army Chinooks were finally able to fly into the Indigenous community of Wujal north of Cairns.
There he is.
To evacuate some of the town's 300 residents. They've had a traumatic week, some forced to swim through croc waters in the middle of the night. By the end of the evacuation, stricken locals will have been moved to the safety of Cooktown.
Healthcare, food, showers at the PCYCs.
The Northern Beaches suburbs of Cairns were smashed at the height of the emergency.
Yorkeys Knob, 2023.
The road in has crumbled, warped and buckled by the water. But the Yorkeys Knob Boating Club has power and some food.
It's really a blessing. Yeah, it's like I'm happy that the community is looking out for each other.
It's also being used as a makeshift medical clinic.
We're doing the best that we can here. It's quite limited.
Nearby, the Ezzy family has a heartbreaking task, clearing mud from their home.
It was in every cupboard, behind every door and every shelf, everything.
They've lost almost everything, even the Christmas tree.
I think it'll hit me in a few days, but it's all stuff. We're all okay.
In the tropical heat, exhausted locals have begun pulling their trashed belongings out onto the street. It's not known exactly how many homes were damaged or destroyed in this flooding event, but what is certain is it's going to take a huge effort to recover.
The rain may have eased, but for many, the flood has put life's essentials beyond reach. Christy Sexton McGrath, ABC News, Yorkeys Knob.
The Israel-Gaza war is threatening to hit global supply chains. A spate of attacks on tankers and ships moving through the Red Sea by rebels linked to Iran has prompted the United States to form a maritime coalition in response. 10 nations have already joined, but Australia has so far resisted calls to deploy a warship.
A crisis mission to Israel where military tensions are playing out well beyond Gaza.
These attacks are reckless, dangerous, and they violate international law.
The US Defence Secretary's cobbling together a maritime coalition to protect merchant ships, now under regular attack by Houthi rebels when transiting the Red Sea.
This is not just a US issue. This is an international problem, and it deserves an international response.
An initial 10-member naval task group, including military assets from Britain, France, Bahrain and Italy, will take part in Operation Prosperity Guardian to patrol the crucial trading waters. Australia's yet to declare any contribution.
We'll consider the request that we've received from the United States military in the normal course.
What we have in this indecision is an international embarrassment.
The Red Sea is the artery that leads to the heart of global trade, the Suez Canal. Up to 15% of the world's trade moves through this bottleneck and around 9 million barrels of oil every day. The spate of attacks from Iran-aligned Houthi rebels has forced some of the world's biggest shipping companies to reroute, adding significant extra time to journeys and cost. Oil prices are now rising as a result.
Our ships are not properly configured to deal with the threat.
and we don't have enough to even do the work we need to do in our own region.
Defence Chief General Angus Campbell will tonight join an international virtual meeting hosted by the US Defence Secretary to discuss the growing Red Sea crisis. For days, Australia's signalled its reluctance to deploy a warship to the Middle East, but the government could soon offer other military support. Andrew Green, ABC News, Canberra.
As the international community prepares a response to those attacks in the Red Sea, there's also growing calls for a ceasefire inside Gaza. Israeli families of hostages are also putting pressure on their government, pleading for more to be done to bring their loved ones home.
73 days of fierce fighting and bloodshed, killing an estimated 19,000 Palestinians, according to Gazan health authorities. It's a soaring toll that's prompted Israel's most powerful ally to once again urge restraint around civilians.
America's commitment to Israel is unwavering, and no individual, group, or state should test our resolve. We must get more humanitarian assistance into the nearly 2 million displaced people in Gaza, and we must distribute that aid better.
When we spoke, I expressed again our commitment, Israel's commitment to achieve total victory against Hamas.
The UN Security Council delayed a vote on a new proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza, and the US stopped short on calling for it today. But international pressure is growing. America is pushing for a restart to the hostage and prisoner exchange. Hamas says that won't happen unless the bullets and bombings stop. Fury within Israel is growing too. Families of hostages protesting in Tel Aviv, calling for more to be done to bring their loved ones home, after Hamas posted another video of 3 elderly men seized on October 7.
It was a joy for a moment to see them alive.
As by far the largest supplier of weapons to Israel's military, the US risks complicity in atrocities in Gaza, according to Human Rights Watch, and now finds itself in the awkward position of trying to urge restraint. And even if the US does allow a new ceasefire resolution to pass the UN Security Council, there are still no guarantees Washington's influence can rein in a vengeful Israel. Tom Joyner, ABC News.
The evidence in former Liberal staffer Bruce Lehrmann's defamation hearing has wrapped up, with a lip reader brought from the UK for the case. Mr Lehrmann is suing Network 10 and journalist Lisa Wilkinson over an interview during which Brittany Higgins alleged she'd been raped at Parliament House. Elizabeth Byrne is following the case at the Federal Court.
The case has ended where it began, at the Dock in Canberra, the pub where Brittany Higgins and Bruce Lehrmann were drinking before the alleged rape. Lip reader Timothy Reedy came all the way from England to tell the court he believes in one exchange Mr Lehrmann was plying Ms Higgins with drinks, saying, "Drink that all now," to which she replied, "I don't want to." Mr Lehrmann's lawyer challenged the testimony, suggesting Mr Reedy was influenced by the context, but Justice Michael Lee has allowed the evidence to be part of the case. Mr Lehrmann launched the defamation case after his trial was abandoned last year with no findings against him. Earlier today, and for part of yesterday, the court live stream was suspended, while Senator Linda Reynolds' former Chief of Staff, Fiona Brown, gave evidence. Ms Brown told the court she was blindsided when Brittany Higgins told her she'd woken to find Bruce Lehrmann on top of her. But she stuck by her claim Ms Higgins never disclosed the assault, something Lisa Wilkinson's lawyer, Sue Chrysantho, questioned. "You must have understood that it must have been an allegation of assault. I didn't, because I was reliant on the information she gave me, and she did not make an allegation." Fiona Brown said after she was told by police Ms Higgins had lodged a complaint about a sexual assault, she spoke to Mr Lehrmann on the phone about his termination. She said he told her, "Neither Brittany or I were in an intoxicated state." She said she pressed further, asking, "What state was Brittany in when you left?" he said she was happy. One person not in court today was Brittany Higgins. She and her fiancé, David Shiraz, have left the country to build a new life in France. The hearing will take a pause tomorrow before final submissions later in the week. Elizabeth Byrne, ABC News, Sydney.
Police say up to 40 people have taken part in an armed fight in the remote NT community of Wadeye more than a year since community tensions boiled over into a fatal riot. Officers were called to the scene around 6 p.m. last night, but the group dispersed when they arrived. They found a 35-year-old man who'd been shot in the arm with an arrow. So far, no one's been arrested over the incident and police are investigating. The community is still rebuilding from a 2022 riot that left a 32-year-old man dead. While Christmas is a joyous time for many, for problem gamblers it can be a period of extra stress and financial strain, and researchers are calling for those impacted to seek help. In the Northern Territory, government data has revealed players poured millions into poker machines across the jurisdiction over the past financial year.
Nearly $150 million lost in Northern Territory poker machines last financial year, an average of $411,000 each and every day.
We're definitely, one of the kind of higher rates of problem gambling in Australia across jurisdictions.
Gambling can impact a family significantly. I know people have lost their houses.
NT government data shows Darwin is the Territory's hotspot, where punters spent more than $67 million. The top-end city of Palmerston and the regional towns of Alice Springs, Katherine and Tennant Creek followed behind. The data shows an overall rise in spending by $15 million on the previous financial year, prompting a stern warning ahead of the Christmas holidays.
Financial stress is probably felt particularly at Christmas time. Loneliness can particularly be felt at that time. So as those stresses escalate, so can people's usage as well.
It might be a feeling of being cut off from family or estranged from friends, which tends to compound as you experience problem gambling.
Pokie players at Territory pubs and clubs raked in more than $48 million in gaming machine taxes for the NT government last financial year, as well as $15 million from hotels and casinos for a levy, which funds support programs for problem gamblers. A game of chance where the trick is knowing when to walk away. Samantha Dick, ABC News.
Coming up on 7:30 with Laura Tingle, the experts concerned as the road toll increases for the first time in decades.
The numbers are going up instead of down.
The horrific limb fractures, the ruptured livers, the shattered bones, we've got to do a lot better than we are.
They're lucky to see them for 5 lessons and a test, or even as little as 3 lessons before they go for their driving test.
Also, I'll speak to British politician and former president of the UN Climate Conference, Alok Sharma.
An earthquake has killed more than 100 people in a mountainous region of northwestern China. The US Geological Survey put the quake's magnitude at 5.9. At least 300 people were injured, according to the country's state media. It also reported damage to water and electricity, as well as transport and communication infrastructure. A dress worn by Princess Diana has sold for $1.6 million at a Hollywood auction, 11 times over the estimated price. It's the most expensive sale ever of clothing owned by the late princess, topping the iconic wool sheep print jumper sold earlier this year. Diana was photographed twice wearing the black and blue ballerina-length dress. Budget airline Bonza has confirmed it will reinstate its previously cancelled Darwin to Gold Coast route. The airline first announced the flights after launching in the NT in September, but earlier this month canned the route hours before departure, claiming it was due to regulatory issues. Around 1,600 customers were impacted by the changes. This morning, the airline said it's now received approval for 2 extra planes, with flights between Darwin and the Gold Coast scheduled to begin again from January next year. To finance now, and the Australian share market has lifted today as the RBA revealed why it held back raising interest rates this month. Here's David Chow.
The Reserve Bank has revealed that it was seriously considering another interest rate hike earlier this month. But its decision to keep rates on hold at a 12-year high was ultimately a balancing act. The RBA's latest minutes show that the board had considered that underlying inflation was higher in Australia compared to other countries, and there was a risk of inflation taking longer than expected to fall to its target of around 3% by 2025. But the bank decided not to ruin Christmas this time due to the possibility of a larger than expected rise in unemployment down the track. And the fact inflation is falling pretty quickly in other countries anyway. Markets are now betting the RBA is done with its rate hikes, a complete 180 from a month ago. They're also pricing in 2 rate cuts next year as the economy slows down. But there are many economists who reckon that time frame for cutting rates is a bit far-fetched. Meanwhile, the All Ords went up by a solid 0.9% to its highest level in 10 months, and shares of a small lithium miner called Azure Minerals jumped 1.7% after Australia's richest person, Gina Rinehart, teamed up with a Chilean mining company, SQM, to make a $1.7 billion takeover bid for Azure. Overseas, it was a solid day for US, UK and Japanese stocks, while oil prices jumped after BP became the latest company to announce it'll pause its shipments through the Suez Canal due to attacks by militants in Yemen on vessels in the Red Sea. And finally, the Aussie dollar is sitting above 67 US cents. And that's finance.
The Western Bulldogs have snared 3 of the best 6 players in the AFLW draft in a move they hope will propel them back up the ladder. Last night, the struggling club picked up local teenager Christy Lee Weston Turner with their #1 selection.
The most exciting young footballers in the country couldn't wipe the smile from their faces. Some are embracing their newfound celebrity status.
I've never gotten more messages than what I got last night, so I felt really popular. Superstar.
The Western Bulldogs select Christy Lee Weston Turner.
Growing up in Melbourne's West, Christy Lee Weston Turner was a mad Bulldogs fan.
There was a lot of tears yesterday and throughout the night, and even this morning.
The 17-year-old will have to juggle the start of her football career with the final year of school.
Footy is definitely my priority, but I think everyone needs just a switch-off moment, and I've got school and I know I've got work as well to cover me.
The Bulldogs dominated the pointy end of the draft, recruiting 3 of the top 6 picks, including Tasmanian midfielder Brooke Barwick.
Since I was a little girl and realised I wanted to play AFLW, I had to consider the fact that I had to move away, and I feel content with that.
Prospective players had the option of nominating nationally or just for their home state. Victorian Jess Wrench says she had no hesitation with the idea of moving to Perth.
I see it as an opportunity, and why wouldn't you want to fully open yourself up to the opportunity that you're given? So I'm 3 hours away from Melbourne anyway, so I was like, I've got to move anyway.
Melbourne brought in a father-daughter pick, selecting Gemma Rigoni, whose dad, Guy Rigoni, played more than 100 games for the Demons. Tom Maddox, ABC News, Melbourne.
And time for the weather now, and Damon Wagland has sent in tonight's viewer pick. Mostly hot and sunny across the territory, and temperature records were broken in the Tanami as Lajamanu topped 46.6 degrees today. No rain for Darwin. The dew point stayed high though, making daytime temperatures feel a lot warmer throughout the day. There was some relief in Alice Springs as cool southeasterlies moved through this morning. And after a hot 43-degree day, Tennant Creek enjoyed a downpour this afternoon. On the satellite, storm clouds are building over the territory's north and through the Barkly, mostly clear skies in the south. A trough through the Barkly is triggering storms, while another trough near the Gulf of Carpentaria is pushing hot westerly winds through the top end. Interstate tomorrow, rain for Brisbane, Sydney and Canberra, hot and windy in Perth, 35 degrees. Back home, dry and sunny in the far south, 35 degrees for Alice Springs, storms for Tennant Creek and a little cooler with a top of 39 expected tomorrow. Storms will pick up over the northeast, a top of 37 degrees for Katherine, Borroloola 38 and 32 for Nhulunbuy. A high chance of rain for Darwin tomorrow with a top of 34 for the city and Warramiunga, Jabiru 36. Heatwave conditions will intensify tomorrow, especially across the western top end and in Arnhem Land. Hot and humid westerly winds off the coast again. There'll be a morning high tide at 10 a.m. and a low tide at 4:30 in the afternoon. The sun will rise at 17 minutes past 6 and will set at 10 minutes past 7. And looking ahead for Darwin, very warm days and nights ahead with a chance of rain or storms. In Alice Springs, becoming warmer during the week before a weak cool change moves through on Sunday. And stay with us now. Laura Tingle is up next with 7:30. Thank you for your company. Good night.